Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a timeless story that kicks off with family love, but quickly spirals into a bitter betrayal. It's a journey that's going to take us from the bottom of a well all the way to the heights of power, and it all comes down to one critical moment of forgiveness. So, at the very heart of this whole saga is a really big question. How does a family, totally broken apart by jealousy, somehow find its way back to each other? Let's follow the incredible life of Yusuf and see if we can find out. All right, so our story starts where a lot of them do, at home. But this is no ordinary home. It's filled with a simmering tension that's just about to boil over, and it's all centered around one beloved son and a pretty wild dream. The root of the conflict is actually something pretty simple, something we can all kind of get. Favoritism. See, Yusuf was his father's favorite, and this special treatment sparked a really nasty jealousy in his 11 older brothers. Their resentment just grew and grew until it became this dark plot to get him out of the picture for good. And then we get this huge turning point. Yusuf has this really strange, vivid dream. He sees the sun, the moon, and 11 stars, which, represent his parents and brothers, all bowing down to him. When he tells his father, his dad immediately gets it. This isn't just some random dream. It's a sign that Yusuf is destined for something big. And just look at this contrast. It's pretty stark. On one side, you have this divine promise, this hint of future greatness. And on the other, you've got the grim reality of a sibling plot that's fueled by pure envy. It's like destiny and destruction are on a collision course. Their plan was just so cold and calculated. First, they convinced their dad to let them take Yusuf out to play. But once they get him alone, they throw him into a deep well. And the final, cruel twist, they take his shirt, cover it in sheep's blood, and go back to their heartbroken father with a lie about a wolf attack. So the betrayal is complete. His own flesh and blood literally leave him for dead. But fates, or maybe something else, steps in. A group of travelers finds him in the well, pulls him out, and sells him as a slave in Egypt. And just like that, his old life is over, and this new, terrifying journey begins. Now, you think being sold into slavery is the end of the story, right? But this is where it gets really incredible. From this absolute rock bottom, Yusuf starts this unimaginable climb to power. His new life in Egypt is where things take a wild turn. So how does a slave, betrayed by his own family, not just survive, but actually thrive in a strange land? Well, it all comes down to his character. Even after everything he'd been through, Yusuf remained honest, kind, and incredibly smart. And these very qualities, they turned out to be the keys that would unlock his destiny. I mean, it's a fair question, right? It seems completely impossible. How on earth could a slave climb the ladder to become one of the most powerful men in the entire country? Well, it all started with another dream. Only this time, it wasn't his. The king of Egypt himself was having these really troubling dreams, and none of his advisors could figure them out. Eventually, word of Yusuf's wisdom and his gift for interpreting dreams reached the palace. He was summoned before the king. This was it. This was his one shot. Yusuf's explanation was totally clear and confident. He told the king that his dream was actually a prophecy about Egypt's future. The first part, 7 years of incredible abundance, bountiful harvests, plenty of food for everyone across the land. But, and this was a huge but, he warns that those good times wouldn't last. Right after those 7 years of plenty, there would be 7 years of a devastating famine, a crisis so bad it could wipe out the whole kingdom. You can imagine, the king was just blown away by how wise and clear this interpretation was. He didn't just thank Yusuf, he promoted him. He made Yusuf one of the most powerful men in Egypt, putting him in charge of the massive, kingdom-wide project of storing up food to survive the coming famine. What a turnaround, right? Okay, so this brings us to the next chapter. The famine Yusuf predicted is here. And this crisis is going to be the ultimate test, forcing the past to come crashing right into the present. Just as he predicted, the famine takes hold of the region, and thanks to Yusuf's planning, Egypt is the only place with food to spare. People start flocking there from all over, desperate for help. And guess who shows up in the crowd? His very own brothers. And here's the kicker, the ultimate dramatic irony. They stand there begging this powerful Egyptian governor for grain, And they have absolutely no clue, not a single clue, that he is the little brother they threw in a well and left for dead all those years ago. So, after putting them through a few tests to see if they'd changed, the moment of truth finally arrives. Yusuf reveals his identity. Can you just imagine their shock, their terror? The boy they tried to erase is now the man who holds their lives in his hands. There's nothing they can do but beg for his forgiveness. And that brings us to the final act, the resolution. This is where all the big themes of the story, betrayal, hardship, and destiny, all come together for this incredibly powerful conclusion. So let's quickly recap the core ingredients here. First, there was jealousy. This wasn't just some small envy. It was a poison that tore a family apart and pushed brothers to do the unthinkable. Then you have the famine. This huge crisis actually served a purpose in the story. The very hardship it caused was the unlikely thing that brought the family back together, forcing them to face their past. And that leads us to the most important piece of all, forgiveness. This wasn't just something that happened. It was an active choice, a choice Yusuf had to make. He had all the power to get revenge, but he chose to heal instead. And in the end, that's exactly what he did. Yusuf forgave his brothers, completely and without hesitation. He brought his entire family, father and all, to Egypt to live with him. The story that started with such a painful separation comes full circle, ending in a joyful reunion. The story closes on this beautiful note of reconciliation, but it kind of leaves us with a really deep question, one that applies to our own lives. Yusuf managed to forgive what most of us would call unforgivable. So what does that really take? What does it take for any of us to truly forgive when we've been hurt that badly?